probably want to follow, because you never know what the new policy is going to be like. And my job and the leadership's job is to try to make sure we have the broadest provisions for you. But we can't always control that. If we get a couple of lawsuits and suddenly somebody's not, through no fault of our own, we got brought in, sometimes these things become more restrictive. So, does that make sense? Did I hit it hard enough for you?
No, you didn't hit it hard enough.
Okay.
You had 3 people up here. And so, in year 2, we have agent coverage. In year 3, we don't, and that's when the lawsuit's filed. And so, you don't have coverage when the lawsuit's filed.
Right. And that's why I'm strongly saying you ought to get somebody to represent you, that in most every policy. And again, remember, transactions are going to be covered under that broker's license. It was whoever, whatever broker that did that deal. The reality is, I'll give you an example just to kind of drive it home. I have a client. They hired two agents away from a Sotheby's franchise up in Santa Barbara. Those 2 agents did a lease transaction. Okay, it started, finished. My client hired them away, and subsequently there was a lawsuit that came up out of it. Now they're over here at my client. The reality is, the lawsuit alleged pulled in Sotheby's, pulled in my clients and the agents as well. The reality is the liability is back here with Sotheby's, because that's when the transaction was done, and that's where the agents were at that time. That policy, assuming Sotheby's has a policy in place, when the suit came in, there should be coverage for it. Okay? The reality is, my client got named in it. They're having to spend attorney fees to get themselves out. Not with Eric, but actually it's worked out very well. We've been able to coordinate the defense of that. Yeah.
Shoots everybody in the room.
I like shooting everybody else because I get to take it all. Nobody likes insurance. I'm right up there with a used car salesman. Well, you guys are a little bit stuck about that. So the point being is these policies, and the reason I also tell you this is, here's my other forewarning. You guys are with a great organization, does things the right way, and a lot of people think I can do it on my own. I have a lot of people go out, they don't understand how E&O insurance, they go out on their own for 2 years, they do a bunch of transactions, they don't keep an E&O policy in place, they go work for somebody, and guess what? If they ever get sued on those transactions, there's no insurance. And they don't know that. That's part of the reason we're educating people. Be smart, be careful. And that is the end of my... So I'm the appetizer, Eric is the main course. Thank you. I have a question back there.
Can you explain if your presentation is in $1 million coverage is only an aggregate per claim? What is that?
A little louder, Getchell.
Okay, her question was, what does the 1 million per incident, 1 million aggregate mean? What it means is that in any one claim, individual claim, will pay out up to $1 million. The maximum the policy will pay over a 1 year period is $1 million. I can tell you to the entire office. Now that seems like, it may seem low to you. I'll tell you that's very comparable for firms of this size. It is rare. In working with firms all over the state, this is by far the most typical limit that is there. And I think Eric can probably attest to in a little bit, the likelihood of a claim exceeding $1 million is probably the likelihood that you get struck by lightning 3 times in your lifetime. So it's not very common, and it shouldn't be, unless you're in the wrong place. It's very rare that you ever see that. And candidly, I can just tell you, the most I've seen any client ever pay out was, on one policy so far, is about $400,000, $450,000. So.
Another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why is it that you work with only 4 home warranty companies, and how did you come to that decision, and why is it that 4?
It's not actually me determining it. The insurance company, each insurance company does it differently. So some of them constrain it. In fact, a particular insurance company where they only wanted 3, but we pushed for 4 because we said, you know what, we want to make sure these are the predominant players in the marketplace. One of the key things here is we also understand you don't always control the transaction. So we wanted to make sure we get as much of the marketplace in here in. And I don't know if you have a procedure regarding if somebody wanted to use, for example, outside of that, did they
want to
have to purchase it?
Okay, well,
So you have a double home, I don't know.
you get a lower deductible if you use those 4. If you don't use those 4, you have a higher deductible. So it's quite simple. If you want to take the risk of paying a greater amount for deductible, then you can use another company. But those there are there for your protection. It's a safe harbor.
Question back there.
John.
I have 2 brief questions.
Sure.
Can a relative list a property?
Can a son list a
Which
property?
relative?
As long as it's,
Well, my son and I work together. I own the property. Can he list it, or is he considered?
if you own it,
Yeah, my
and it's
wife
not
and I own
owned
the
in
property.
trust or something like that where he's part of, downstream.
Beneficiary.
Yeah, as long as he's got a beneficiary designed on that particular property, then yes. I've heard the same question on just, also clarification is on teams as
If
well.
it's in a trust, he can or cannot.
I would say he cannot, because I believe, and Eric can probably speak to this more specifically, because he's deemed a beneficiary and deemed
But
in
if he
part
is
an
not,
owner.
then it's okay.
You just got
That would
disinherited,
be-
Gio.
Sorry, Gio. Now you know the truth, Gio.
It's the downside of a trust.
My second question is, I'm trying to understand something. So, if somebody gets sued and the company pays out $400,000,
Yeah.
and a second person gets sued and the company pays out $600,000, the office has no coverage then?
At that point in time during that for that policy period, and again, it's only for that year, because the next year we're gonna get a fresh new aggregate that we're gonna purchase.
Yeah, the next
That's
year
the way it's out.
Yeah, your rate will be up,
The
yeah.
rates are gonna be a little higher, but okay.
That's scary. I mean, is that
Yeah, it's been like that forever. Forever and ever. That's why we emphasize our paperwork and our risk management so much. It is a scary proposition.
Right. One of the things I'll applaud you guys that you guys do, and I'll find that a lot of people don't, is the use of transaction point. Is a great risk management tool for me as the insurance representative. When I go to the marketplace, to be able to say that you guys, you're an educated group, your experience that you use transaction point, that there's checks and balances. The insurance companies want to see that, and that's why we were able to get good rates for you guys. Your loss history is great as well, and we've got good representation.
They
Yes,
want to
sir.
see it because it works.
Want to see it what?
They don't just want to see it. They want to see it because it works.
It works.
And it keeps the transaction
does.
integrated and effective. That's why they want it.
Right.
Okay.
That's why they've been able to keep our rates down. That's why they've been able to get us insurance, because we are so proactive with our risk management.
Hey,
And-
Jennifer, come sit over here with us.
I want to bring up just like 2 things, and the reason, I don't know if Eric, you're going to touch on this, but a couple of different things that are hot topics from the CAR meetings last week. One of the things that we're starting to see, and just be very wary of it, is discrimination, fair housing issues. And the only reason I say it was I actually have a client, not here. They had an agent who was a listing agent make a simple comment that would seem simple to most people, which is multiple offers. Well, where's she from? Okay, to the buyer's agent, the buy side. So she ended up not getting the deal. At the end of the day, it was $167,000 in defense and settlement for a stupid little comment like that. We've also heard the same thing on family situations. Like, I come to you and I've got 7 kids, and I'm asking you to find me a 2-bedroom house, and saying, well, you sure that's big enough? We've seen suits. The attorneys, when we were up at CAR, they were saying, we think that there's actually people trying to set up agents right now on stuff like this. So be really careful of it. The other one that I had, and it was a horrible one, to stay away from any tenant in common situations. I actually had one client, 2 agents got involved, ended up being a Ponzi scheme. And last year we paid out $730,000. Actually, it was 2 different policies. on 2 of them because the thing blew up. And they said